Welcome to the newest edition of the Flagship in Focus, hosted by yours truly, Alan Pandiani, Associate Athletic Director for External Operations at the University of Massachusetts. I'm super excited today because we are joined by somebody that has tremendous respect and has gone on to achieve so much since matriculating through both our women's basketball program and our university, Dr. Cady Corner. Doctor, thank you so much for being on with us today. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and sort of your life story to this point since coming up through our women's hoops program at UMass.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for allowing me to be part of this great program. I'm Cady Corner. I played at UMass from 1997 to 2001. So fortunately, I grew up in a small town in Ohio. I was recruited by Joni O'Brien, our head coach here at UMass at the time. And I couldn't have been more excited to come to UMass. I actually was basically pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered to go to Yale. And at the very last minute, once I came on my official visit right outside of the campus center, I committed, and I couldn't have been happier. For me, UMass was just a place that I felt like I fit in. Even then, I knew I wanted to go to medical school, and I really, even at that young age, knew I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And I felt that, Yale had a lot of great things to offer, but I felt like I fit in better at UMass, and I knew I could still achieve those things, which obviously I've been very fortunate to go on to medical school and have a very successful professional career. But at UMass, I had a great basketball career, probably a little bit better than maybe my coaches had even expected. But, I think I was the first player ever to score 1,000 points and 500 assists on the women's side and the second overall. We played in the NCAA tournament that first year, which was our last time. So I'm expecting current teams, if you're watching this, you guys had a great season this year, and we look for better things in the future. So I really had great teammates, and I had a really great experience. I was a major of biochemistry and molecular biology. From UMass, I went back to my home state of Ohio. I went to medical school at Northeast Ohio University College of Medicine, where I spent the next 4 years from there. And I was very fortunate at UMass. I got to meet Dr. McBride and Dr. Rouzier. They took care of me both as orthopedic surgeons and primary care doctors. I was able to shadow Dr. McBride, confirm my desires to be an orthopedic surgeon. So in medical school, it was a very easy choice for me. I knew orthopedics was what I wanted to do, and really knew sports medicine was what I wanted to do. So after Ohio and medical school, I went to William Beaumont, which is outside of Detroit, Michigan, where I spent the next 5 years for my orthopedic residency. And then I chose to do a sports medicine fellowship, which I went to Duke for 1 year. I took care of their men's basketball team, women's basketball team, and football, traveled with those guys. I learned a lot. I really felt fortunate from being a college athlete and now taking care of college athletes. That was really special to me. And I knew one day that I wanted to be a team doctor on that level. However, my first job for the first 5.5 years took me to Dallas, Texas. I worked at UT Southwestern. There I was an assistant professor. I taught medical students and residents. I was able to take care of the NHL Dallas Stars and some local high schools. So it was a really cool experience with NHL hockey, with UMass hockey being so big. That was sort of my introduction. And then obviously the Dallas Stars, that was a really fun experience. I worked with a lot of great people. And then basically 3 years ago, I had the opportunity, it presented itself to come here. I now work at UConn, although a little bit of a robbery down the street, but it's been a very good professional experience for me. Here I'm a team doctor. I take care of all the sports teams, men's hockey, football, men's and women's basketball. So again, it really gives me that opportunity to be close to the athletes, have them understand that I've been through that. Also for 2 years, I took care of the WNBA Connecticut Sun, which women's basketball was near and dear to my heart. So all very cool experiences. And I think UMass did a lot to shape me as a young, 18 to 22-year-old, and really taught me a lot about my work ethic and my ability to sort of get through all those grueling moments of medical school and residency, which are a lot of, I always equate them to two-a-days or getting up at 5:30 in the morning to practice in the Mullins Center with Joni yelling at us and, getting us on the baseline is very similar to trauma bays in the middle of the night when traumas come in, and you just have to learn to perform and you have to count on your teammates, very similar to the age of basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Dr. KC, I think you're sort of the criterion example for, I think, a lot of people watching this where, I think a lot of times, and, I can say this myself as a former student athlete at Providence College, I think a lot of times people, when they're coming in as freshmen, they may say like, oh my gosh, the time demand is going to be so much. I don't know if I can do that microbio or pre-med or pre-law track that's where my passion is. But I think if there's one thing, just as a quick aside here, that I would love for some of the young viewers to take away from your story, it's that you weren't going to compromise your long-term goals because you knew you were going to have so much to do around the activities and practices with your basketball team. And I think that that's a big takeaway, where it's when you're passionate about something, or from early on that that's the vocation that you want to be associated with. I think it's something that might be lost on people, especially young people, when they're coming in to be athletes, and that lean into what that passion is and go after what you feel your volition is, as opposed to just sort of chalking it up to, well, I'm going to be too busy with my sport to do that. So
yeah, I think absolutely. And I think as the recruiting process goes along, you got to find a school and coaches that are willing to support that goal. Right. And it's actually, it breaks my heart a little bit. I often see athletes that I operate on, and especially women, because I do a lot of things with women in medicine. And, they tell me, oh, in high school, I really wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't think I could do it. And they're like, you did this? And you were an athlete? And they're like, wow. I've even changed some of their minds here at UConn in regards to their majors, and they've switched back to pre-med, which, nothing makes me happier just to be able to influence the next generation, especially athletes, because I think, it is hard, no doubt. It was very different for me than my teammates doing different majors. But I think that if your passion is there, and ultimately it makes me better. I'm better when I'm busy. If I have too much time on my hands, and we'll talk a little bit about these COVID times, it gets to be more difficult for me than when I'm sort of really have a regimented schedule.
Right. And that's the thing, is structure is sort of that great unlock that helps a lot of people realize their potential. And, you're going to get significantly more out of your life if you're electing to make sure that you're going after that major that you're really passionate about, rather than opting just to have a few extra hours to nap each day. But, moving on here, Dr. Casey, obviously your life flipped upside down, I'm sure, 8-10 weeks ago. Tell our audience a little bit about how, as an orthopedic surgeon, life has changed and how you've had to adapt since really January 1st.
Absolutely. So obviously, as an orthopedic surgeon, I stay very busy. I mentioned all the sports teams that I cover. I do clinic basically 3 days a week, and I operate 2 days a week. In the middle of that, I'm also educating medical students, residents, and now we also have sports medicine fellows at UConn. So our days are very, very busy, and it pretty much came to a screeching halt. I guess it's almost 7 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago now. And I can remember the last 2 surgeries that were scheduled, and it was sort of iffy if they were going to be allowed to be done. And COVID really, as orthopedic surgeons, we obviously don't deal with people in the hospital and in the ICU necessarily, and that's not our job. So it was really important for my department and our group to figure out how we can be helpful in these times when we are no longer really doing clinic. We're really no longer doing elective surgeries. I basically, over the last 7 weeks, I've done 1 surgery a week, which typically I would do anywhere from, 5 to 10 surgeries a week. And those were just urgent things like quad tendon ruptures or fractures and broken bones that had to be done, that was detrimental if it waited longer than what we would normally do. So for us, we made our office, we always had a doctor of the day where there was only 1 person to limit and try to limit the social distancing in regards to having as many people in the office as we normally do. We'd only have 1 doctor in the office, and we tried to shuttle any sort of non-life-threatening things from the emergency room that were musculoskeletal in nature down to our office that we could triage, that we could take care of. When we talked to a patient on the phone that was having a concern, instead of sending them to the ER, which we may normally do because we have a very normal or a very busy schedule, we brought them to the office to see them, to try to triage them, to limit patients' exposures, to limit, providers' sort of overburdenedness with work that had to be done in the ERs. And the other thing that personally I and a few of the other people in my department did is I actually worked in the front lines on the drive-through testing site for COVID. So I was swabbing people myself, and I did that either 1 or 2 to 3 days a week, even on Saturdays sometimes, just because I felt like, hey, there's not a lot of need for orthopedic surgeons right now. This is a way that I can contribute and save those internal medicine doctors and those people that are, trained on running ventilators and our needs with hands-on patient care in the hospital for those type of things. So for me, that was very rewarding in my small way to be able to give back as an orthopedic surgeon. It's really changed a lot of things. I think many of them for the good. We have 30 30 residents at UConn that are orthopedic, residents being trained. So we can't forget about them. And this is, a short period in their 5-year training, but it's important to learn to operate. And when we're not doing cases, that affects them. And even our sports medicine fellows, they're only with us for 1 year. So if this is, 2 or 3 months out of their 12 months of training, that's significant. So I developed a whole didactic program, which we were doing these WebExes just like we're doing today. And it's really changed how we're probably going to educate in the future.
Yeah, there's this quote that I heard sort of earlier on in all this that's really stuck with me, where it was, there are decades where weeks happen and weeks where decades happen. And I think the paradigm shift you're going to see in education, in healthcare, in a lot of these previously undisruptable industries, it's going to be seismic. And I know, at least for me with my general practitioner, I was supposed to go in for a routine physical a few weeks ago, and we did it over Microsoft Teams. And
Yeah.
And he was using, my doctor, Dr. Vigderman, was using data from, my Apple Watch in terms of what I'm getting on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's going to be super fascinating to just see how this is all going to change over the coming years as a result of this. And honestly, I think it's really going to change a lot of people's perceptions of what work from home means, because I know I've witnessed it with a lot of people on my staff where their productivity is just through the roof when they're at their home environment working. What do you see, Dr. Coiner, as some of the more long and lasting impacts from this, from a medical standpoint, both positive and negative?
Yeah, so from the positive side, I think telehealth is exactly that. I have started to use that, and it's to look at wounds and to look at incisions and to examine someone's shoulder. It's amazing. I can do the same things that I could if you're sitting right in the office. And at UConn we have to pay to park, so patients are no longer going to have to pay to park. If they're elderly, they're not going to have somebody bring them, and especially if they're sick or ill or family members. So that part has all been very good, and I think we'll continue to advance that and sort of figure out where that each sits in our own practice. It's obviously a little bit more difficult for an orthopedic surgeon. We can't examine your knee or diagnose an ACL tear just over that, but I think there's definitely pieces of that we will incorporate into our own practice. I think from a partially negative standpoint, we're going to be paying much more attention to our resources. So although where I operate as an outpatient surgery center, it was never going to be directly affected by COVID. We weren't going to have necessarily COVID patients being treated there, but gowns and gloves and masks and everything we are much more aware of that, and we're going to have to be able to be prepared for something like this in the future. So I think we always try to learn from history and don't let it repeat itself. So I think those are all going to be things that we're going to be better next time if something like this comes along.
Absolutely. And necessity is the mother of innovation. And you see some of these companies that can just produce ventilators in a fraction of the time. You see apparel companies, or I saw yesterday Old Navy is going to offer an entire collection of child-sized masks in anticipation of mask regulations when children potentially are returning to school in the fall. It's safe to say that we're going to be feeling the effects of this for a long time, both positive and negative. Dr. Coiner, what are some things that you would like our audience to know today in terms of just some general do's and don'ts, or words of encouragement for maybe young athletes out there that might be in high school or of a recruitable age? What would you like the audience to know today from where you're positioned within the world of healthcare?
Yeah, I think the first will be about the athletes and the second maybe about the do's and don'ts. And my heart goes out to, all those athletes at whatever level you are, whether it's, your last junior high season, your senior season in high school, definitely the seniors in college, all those people that maybe missed out on that spring season, and hopefully fall will come back around and we'll be able to get back to not normal, but a more normal aspect of what will be our new normal. And I think that, especially for those kids that are trying to be recruited and, feel like they're missing out on this summer, just realize that, if you have the potential and you have the heart and you have the drive, you're going to be discovered, and eventually you're going to get to a place that you're going to be able to call home, and you're going to be able to grow, and life goes on after sort of those years and being an athlete and a student athlete, and then being a professional and being able to impact the world like we all have. I think those are the most important things for young athletes. Regarding the do's and don'ts, I think that, it's the things that we hear all the time. Definitely, washing your hands, keeping your social distance from both family and friends. I've been very, somewhat strict in my family about my mother, and us just keeping our distance from her, because it's super important. And that doesn't end when the economy sort of reopens. And we need to sort of keep in mind with some of those things. And there's been lots of reports in the medical world that maybe we'll no longer do handshakes. Something that we've done for so long. And it's still, every time I walk into a room, that's my first response. But we got to figure out some better things to do. I think wearing masks is definitely going to be important. Who knows how long that's going to be. But I think that, you get used to it. I obviously wear a mask a ton all the time. And I see people, having struggles with that. But you do get used to it. Try to find one that, you can try a few different types to see which one fits you best and you can breathe through best. But I think all those things, this isn't going to end tomorrow, just like it didn't start overnight. And we need to be conscious of that and do our part. And so people that are in the hospitals can do their part.
For sure. Well, Dr. Coiner, again, we thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today to come on the Flagship in Focus with us. We really appreciate it, and we're so proud of what you're doing as a representative of our athletics program. So thank you so much for that. To our fans that are watching, you can look forward to another episode here of the Flagship in Focus next Tuesday. Have a great day.
Thanks.